Hello and welcome to Mindset Kitchen. My name is Diana Paliokaite and I have Sam Bishop with me here. Sam has a decade of experience working with elite performing athletes and professional sports teams. He also regularly delivers psychology performance keynotes. Tell me a little bit more about this and your career and your experience.
Thank you very much for that introduction, Diana. I really appreciate you inviting me and having me here today.
My pleasure.
So a little bit about me and my background really should probably start where it all began, really, with academics. And so my undergraduate degree was in psychology. And then I went on after studying psychology into psychotherapy and completed a master's at university. So I was there for 7 years for my sins. But if I'm honest with you, I always just really enjoyed studying and understanding more about people, the way in which our minds work, the way in which our brains process information and situations that we face. And then going on to do the master's in psychotherapy really allowed me to further that just alongside just the cognitive understanding, but more about emotions and behaviors too, and why we think the way we do, feel the way we do, and behave the way we do in the world. And so when I then left university, I was really fortunate to be accredited in psychotherapy and counseling, talking therapy, and was approached at that time to be connected with different professional athletes and sports teams. And it was particularly the Professional Footballers Association and working within the world of football that I started this journey in my professional life after academics had ended. And really, I've had the privilege, as you said in my introduction, of over a decade now, getting to work with individual athletes and at times teams to work with them in those three sort of key areas: their mindsets, their emotions, and their behaviors. Often there's a high level of pressure in that space, so they know that they need to either maintain performance levels or really utilize their potential and get the best out of themselves. So I have the privilege of getting to work with them and have been now, as I say, for nearly 11 years, which is scary to think about it in that way, in that space. And then that evolved and grew over the few years to move from football into other sports like rugby, in cricket, golf, those sorts of different sports, working with elite athletes in those spaces. And that was quite an interesting journey. I'm sure we'll probably talk about that more a little bit later, working with individual athletes compared to maybe players that were working within teams. And then 5 years ago, I had the privilege of working in both business and sport because a player at the time introduced me to a brother of his who was working in the corporate organization. And the player said in a therapeutic session, "Sam, I've been talking to my brother about what you're doing with me, with my mindset and my emotions to help me perform better. He thinks you might be able to help some of the people that he leads and some of the people that are in his team." If I'm honest with you, Diana, I was a little bit skeptical. I was a little bit unsure. I thought I was the psychology therapy guy that just stayed in sport and could do football and other sports, but that was really my area of specialty. But when I met with this player's brother, he just started to talk about people with people problems, mindset, emotions, behaviors. They knew that they weren't getting the very best out of themselves in those business spaces and in those sort of team environments. And so I just started very organically to then start to do some work in the business corporate space as well. And that's now, I suppose, where you now find me delivering at times maybe some teach and talk sessions whereby I'm going in to talk about things like mindset and how you can really elevate your understanding of the way in which your brain works to get the best out of yourselves on an individual level and a team level. Other times it might be more of a resilience or, I suppose, motivation focus. And again, that could be to teams, that could be to individuals, or it could be to larger audiences as well. So I get the privilege of working in a variety of different spaces, but always it's got to be involving people. And people have been my passion even before my academic journey. If you'd have met me at 13, 14, I didn't really know where I wanted to be or who I wanted to be later on in life, but I knew that I found people fascinating. And so now I get the privilege every day of getting to work with people and getting to go underneath what maybe they show to the world and dig a little bit deeper into some of those more sensitive areas like their mind and their emotions too.
Wow, well, there is a really good reason why you're here, because I'm so fascinated about all of those things. And you know, Sam, when I met you for the first time, you had this charisma, this energy about you. And when you said that you're working with people, and in particular in this area, I could see like exactly why, because you're just down-to-earth guy and you're passionate, and that passion, shines through to you. And it's absolutely fascinating. And I think in the area where you work, it's never almost enough. You could potentially keep on going and learning new things, because as you know, the neuroscience and all the neuroplasticity and all of the elements that keep coming in, and people realizing it more, and people's curiosity is growing with it as well, and they want to understand more how their brain works, because essentially we never really thought about it. When we were younger, we didn't really think about how your brain works and how you can control pretty much everything. You can make anything you want with your brain, right? And with your life. So I'm really fascinated to delve deeper into these messages that you brought. And Sam has been nibbling here on the bruschettas, which I've made with gorgonzola cheese and smoked tomato. It's like a tomato balsamico that I have, which has been smoked, some garlic and so on, just as a nibble. But you've chosen Italian. So I assume you love Italian food.
I do.
Who doesn't?
I do, yeah.
And I love Italian as well, actually. It's probably the kind of food that you cook at home with friends. And I love when you chose it. But when people choose cuisine, then I go deep and I was like, oh my God, what do I cook for Sam? Yeah. And obviously in the interest of time that we have here and to extract the most out of the guests and spend less on the pots and pans smoking away, I have chosen to cook crab linguine, or kind of crab spaghetti probably. It's a little bit thinner that I've made. Nice. It's going to be a really simple meal. I have, if guests can see, I have pre-made the spaghetti here, and nice. Sam has arrived a little bit earlier. He saw me doing it.
Very impressed. Very impressed.
I'm hoping this works out when I put it in the boiling pot and it starts cooking. And if it doesn't work out, we have some dried pasta on the hand, just to save the day, basically. So I hope you enjoyed that.
Yeah.
So without further ado, I'm going to introduce your first message, which is actually really short, 2 words, but very powerful. And I just can't wait to see what's beneath that from your experience. So the first message is know thyself.
Absolutely. Thank you for giving me again that opportunity to share more with you. So for me, I think this is the key message that I wanted, I suppose, to get across in out of the 3, which is about really people's ability to dig a little bit deeper into their understanding of who they are. And I gave that in my introduction about my passions are about helping people sort of discover things as insights or understandings of their mindset, their emotion, their behaviors. But one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about sharing this message is I believe that we're starting to see a trend whereby people are very quick to look outwardly for the quick fixes or the solutions to maybe some of the challenges that they're facing, and very quick, therefore, to invest time, energy, and effort in following the latest fads, trends, social media campaigns, online courses, for example, rather than actually, and I know I'm biased because this is what I get to do each and every day, but rather than actually take time to look inward and actually truly know more about who they are. So my key message around know thyself is about really taking time to reflect. Do you understand more about who you are? Do you really understand how you think when you face certain situations or challenges? Are you able to identify patterns or maybe some consistencies? Maybe there are some big discrepancies and maybe there are some gaps there in your thinking, or maybe it's about more of your emotional regulation. And again, really trying to understand and dig a little bit deeper into what is really going on those emotional levels. And knowing thyself really encapsulates all 3 of those areas: mindset, emotions, and behaviors, because it's messy and it's not always very comfortable to do it. And at times it might be that you can do it independently by yourself, or it might be that you do engage with somebody like me who's a professional in this space. But what I'm regularly seeing is that trap of people chasing the external strategies or solutions that they have a hope and at times a desperation to be the resolution that they need to be thinking maybe in a more positive way, or to feel more connected, more empowered in the world, and therefore their behaviors can follow. And they invest their time, they invest their energy, and for whatever reason, it just doesn't work, and it doesn't then support them in the way that they wanted to. It doesn't reach the outcomes that they desired, and then it becomes almost like a double negative. They saw a problem or a situation developing, they saw a solution, but because they've gone externally rather than internally, they're using solutions or potential remedies that aren't ever going to be effective because they're not actually dealing with the underlying issue or the underlying problem. And so I think that's probably my, I suppose, biggest passion at the moment, is to promote the message of, are you truly taking time to know thyself? Are you really being honest, but also brave to look in the mirror or take that reflective energy inwards to really start to dig a little bit underneath the surface of who we are as individual people in those really important areas?
And you know what was coming up to me? It's almost like if you do look outwardly, it's not sustainable. So you may fix the problem with taking something from external environment, but it's not going to be permanent. And so then another problem arises, and then you look externally again, and that's not necessarily going to fix it. It's almost like putting a layer over a problem and hiding it away. And for example, people, let's say I've never been on a certainly strict diet, but the diets, why people say diets don't work, it's because it's not sustainable. You cannot stick to diet forever.
Yeah.
You want to find a balance that works for you and you can maintain that. So it's almost like if you know yourself internally, the problems that come to you then will be faced from internally. Actually, those problems are probably never going to come again, essentially, right? And the new problems will come. You actually, the way you tackle, we will change them as well. So Sam, you have loads of clients, professional athletes who perhaps have a lot of pressure in their careers and perform under certain conditions. Where do you start in terms of helping them to find and know themselves?
Great question.
The first thing you do?
First thing to do is to just be very, very patient in those early few sessions, or that early contact time with them, is to really allow them to share openly with me what are the problems or the pain points that they're experiencing. More often than not, if it's a sporting client, it'll be very quickly directly related to their performance. So they're not scoring goals on the pitch. They're not reaching the performance levels that they know they can. They recognize maybe their ranking in the world is dropping. They'll be able to give you that sort of level of detail, quite surface detail, quite analytical detail, often quite frequently, a lot of numbers and data. But then what you'll then start to need to do is go a little bit deeper than what's actually sitting behind those outcomes. So you're not scoring on the pitch at the moment. You haven't been in the top 10 in a competition for several weeks. What might be causing that? What might be leading to that? And then again, you've got to be patient in that space to stay very curious and very reflective. There may be a couple of frustrations and hesitation. So, well, I thought it was this and I've tried that and it didn't work. And well, then my coach advised me to do this, or a team member told me to do that. And well, that now hasn't worked. So again, you've got to be patient and go past those layers. And then you can then start to hopefully dig a little bit deeper and really then start to uncover the gold. And that can take time. But what I'm talking about by saying what's uncovering the gold is, well, we know that's the problem and we know you've tried these things. What else could it be? It could be really as basic as that question, Dana. What could it be? What could be one of the reasons as to why you're maybe not getting the best out of yourself right now, or you're really struggling on the performance window or the pitch that you're playing on? And it's at that moment then you get this beautiful, almost energy or glow within the session. It's this harmony that comes between the two people, between myself and my clients, whereby they recognize that we're not in any rush. We're not doing what potentially other people are doing, which is try and get them to find an answer. Or what's your problem? Or it could be that. Or what's your problem? It could be that. And I'm just sat with them in that patient way of just saying, look, we're going to try and find here the actual problem. And then I believe we can then find the answer. And taking time to really allow them just the opportunity to explore possibilities. Because again, people can be highly pressurized to perform, or the need to get the best out of themselves. So then they put a pressure on themselves to find the quick fix. And that's why you get that often negative behavior of seeking things outwardly. So when we're in those sessions, it can get a bit sticky. It can get a little bit heated, because they might believe I've got the answer and I'm not sharing it with them. Or they might believe that this process should be quickened up. And sometimes it can be frustrating because it takes some time. But ultimately what that means is that by just staying curious and going a little bit deeper into more about what they're truly thinking, feeling and behaving, allows you then the opportunity to open up some of the doorways. And some of the doorways might be things like fears. Some of them might be insecurities. Some of them might be vulnerabilities. Or the reality can be that some people have been highly successful, and I do get to work with sport and business clients. So some people may reach number one in the world, or reach a Premier League contract and highly sort of sought after and highly paid. Or somebody might be CEO of a large organization and had a fantastic career. But the reality can be that what got them there doesn't always mean that's what's going to keep them there. And that can be really vulnerable for somebody to be sat in a space admitting to another human being, you know what, all of the resources, all of the skills, all of the techniques I had that used to get the best out of me doesn't work anymore. Or I've changed, my emotions have changed, my mindset's changed. And therefore the behaviors have followed, they're not what they used to be. And that's where I think you've really got to get to into the know thyself space, is some of the vulnerability of people being really, really honest. Rather than that frantic panic energy that can happen, actually just being in that open space. So a couple of ways to do that are be patient. Another way is to be curious. What could it be? And then when that rapport is really built up, then the gold can happen where somebody's really vulnerable and opens up some doorways and says, you know what, here's some deeper truths that I think are probably important for us to talk about, to then we can start to find the material to move them forward.
So Sam, let's say someone is listening to you right now and they do not have a coach and they do not perhaps have a opportunity to have a coach. But they do want to make some change. Everything's going fine in their life, but they always looking for that external solutions and actually realizing that I don't really know myself fully. And actually another question came up as I was saying, how do we know that we don't know?
More often than not, that would be because there's a high level of frustration. So how do I start to understand that maybe somebody's looking in the wrong places for the solutions or the answers or the resolutions? It's because they start to sort of demonstrate some frustration. So they'll be very clear. Everybody's normally pretty good and pretty honest. Like, if you could be better at areas of your life, what would they be? And what do you think is maybe getting in that sticky space that's blocking you from being able to be that version of yourself that you want to be, or create the change in your life that you want? People are normally pretty good at knowing that. That might be the things that we think about before we fall asleep. Those might be the things that we think about when we're having quiet moments. We're in the car. Maybe there's silence in the house. Children are upstairs. Husband or partner's outside. And you just think, yeah, there's some things here that I know about myself. And that's great to have that level of awareness. But really, it's about then when people become truly honest, what you'll often find is behind that frustration is a pain. And that's really where I think people will be listening to this and they'll probably be thinking, yeah, no, I'm frustrated and I'm not getting what I want here, but I'm trying this and I'll see if it works. Normally the pain comes when it's, I've tried this and it didn't work. I've tried this, it didn't work. I've tried that and it didn't work. And I read that book and a friend gave me this podcast and then I signed up to that online course. And then I tried that 6-week boot camp training, resilience, and it still hasn't worked. And that's the moment where often you can understand that people aren't finding the real answer. They're just chasing an answer.
Love it. Because that's exactly, you just hit the spot, because it is identifying that you actually need to look somewhere else, i.e. internally. And to get to that point, it's actually lots of those trial and errors. And once you get to that point, you know what? I'm actually going to see what I can do about myself and my thoughts. Maybe my thoughts were wrong at this boot camp. My thoughts maybe and feelings were wrong when I approached the situation or anything to do with anything. So that was really good answer. And another question that I had
please.
was, so the person doesn't have opportunity to have a coach and doesn't have a certain awareness. Let's say it's quite hard to have that awareness. I've been working on my own self-awareness for years now, and I thought, you know what? I'm really good. I notice myself how I feel. If I don't feel like going to gym, I'm like, oh, so why are you not going to gym? What is it? So you kind of like answering questions and giving then you go to the gym. Yes, I did it. I mastered myself. Then you in another situation with friends or a situation where I'm cooking food, preparing, you again, and then some situation comes in, I didn't even think about it. Why did I behave that way? So the awareness goes on and limited because of the situations are unlimited, right? So you don't have awareness and you don't have opportunity to have a person like you. I woke up, I just want to do something about it. What's the simplest thing you could suggest?
First thing I'd encourage them to do is, and just, I suppose, going to answer 2 points you've just made there, brilliant points. First one is, I don't want anybody that's listening or watching to us today to think that they need to become obsessional about their self-awareness and just constantly be sort of navel gazing. That's not my
like me.
that's not my overarching message. If people want to reflect on themselves, then please do. If they want to know themselves, please do. But don't become obsessional. So my top tip would be to become observational rather than obsessional. Some keywords and buzzes there. But some of the other things that I would think, if you don't have a coach, if you don't have time, life is busy and chaotic, one reflective tool that you can do to dig a little bit deeper into knowing yourself is, at the end of every day, just reflect on the day that you've just been through, the events, the situations, the people, the challenges. What do you think you did really well throughout the day? It might be a way of speaking to somebody. It might be a way of communicating. It might be a way of reacting. It might be a way of, I suppose, responding emotionally to somebody else. Just write that down. In the last 24 hours, what did I do really well? What am I pleased with myself? Where can I say to myself, like, good job, well done, pat on the back. And also allow yourself to just take a moment to be observational and say, in the last 24 hours, if I could relive a moment, what would it be and why? And normally that will be something like, I didn't handle myself appropriately in that space, or I said too much, or I didn't say enough at that time. Or when that person came to me with that question, I was quite dismissive because I was in a rush and actually I probably, if I could replay that moment, would be a little bit more patient with them, take time to truly listen to what they were saying, and then respond to the question that they actually asked, rather than just the panic and chaos of life and just giving them an answer that I think would have been enough. You know, people are able to do that, and it might just be a couple of moments of reflection, but that then starts to dig a little bit deeper than just, how was your day? Fine. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you have a good day? Yeah, it went well. It's that what went really, really well, let's celebrate it, find the what and then the why. And if you could relive one moment, one interaction, one few minutes of your day, what would that be and why? And then you've then got a platform then to do deeper work. Because if it's I wish I could revisit that conversation. Why? Because I was too rushed and I wasn't patient enough and I didn't actually listen to my colleague or partner, whoever it may be. Then you can then think, okay, if I had to place that situation again tomorrow or replay that situation tomorrow, this is what I would do differently. So then you're starting to embed in your thinking, not just the awareness, but then the potential new action or new behavior. And then you're just starting to build up new networks in your thinking. You're starting to build up new muscles of awareness. And those techniques, although they might sound very simple to people that are watching us today, they can be highly effective because what you're doing is digging deeper than just maybe the average person that just ends the day by closing their eyes and just going to sleep.
That's absolute perfect advice, Sam. Absolute perfect, because I think it's that accumulative effect as well. Because once you've done once, it might be hard to do again because well, it's not doing anything, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's by sticking to it. Let's just say, I don't know, from my experience, a couple of weeks sticking to this will start showing you aha moments where you're like, I just caught myself. I'm changing the way I'm going to behave about the situation on the spot rather than reflecting back in the evening. And then you will see the miracles it does.
Absolutely. And then you'll be aware of it. So if you had the same situation again tomorrow, you'd be like, I reflected on this last night. Yesterday wasn't how I wanted to do it. And if you can write it down, which is always a technique I encourage, what you'll then start to notice is you might then start to be observational and see patterns. So it might be that you notice Monday through to Friday, the afternoons are where you're behaving in ways that you know aren't maybe getting the best out of yourself, whether that be in your personal relationship or your professional relationships. Then it might be, okay, well, what am I doing in the afternoons, or what's creating it so that I'm getting the worst of myself in the afternoon? And again, then you can be observational, curious, and stay in that open, reflective space. But again, people watching might not even know that about themselves. They might not ever take the time, or they may not have been able to carve out the time. I don't think it has to take very long. I just think it has to be with brave, honest reflection that people can then start to take steps to understand themselves better and know who they are.
Beautiful, you know, and I guess that's one of the ways that start knowing yourself. And we all have that ability and we all have that available to us, which is great.
One last thing, you just triggered something in my thinking.
Yeah, good.
One of the things that I would say is that one of the things that I often have to do with my clients, and something that you could do this at home if you were just going to do your own reflections, is you will reach a moment whereby you go, I just don't know. Why did I just don't know. Why did I just don't know. And it'll become that sticking point. And one of the things I talk about in one of my keynotes is opening up the I don't know doors. Really pushing up against that moment where we know it's about to get a bit messy and it's a bit sticky and it's a bit tough to maybe really look at ourselves and be quite honest. And one part of us will just say, I don't know, and be quite dismissive. If you hit the I don't know door, you're on the right track. If you can push and be patient and find a way to open the door, because more often than not, the answer will be revealed the other side.
Wow, that's amazing. So I don't know is when you just, yes, jackpot.
Embrace it.
I don't know.
Embrace it. You'll be frustrated because you'll be like, this person, Sam, said on Mindset Kitchen, I've got to be reflective here. Why did I do that? And what was leading to that? I don't know. But that's often then that last bit of push that we need to do. Push over the resistance, push over that stickiness, and then allow yourself then to actually understand what's happening on the other side.
That's absolutely fascinating. I love that. And I think I was doing quite a few elements of that, as you noted, and it didn't work for quite some time to me, I must say. I kept on going and I did not notice anything. And then just suddenly something hit. Yeah. And suddenly it just all kind of like, as the floodgate just opened.
Yes.
And that was it. That was just almost like it encouraged my curiosity even further. Yeah. Because then it gave me connection within me. Yeah. And once I found that it was the curiosity that led me towards continuation of that
I think your
growth.
reference to curiosity is perfect. I strongly encourage everybody that's listening to make sure that they can hold some curiosity. And I'm mindful we're talking about some deep reflections here about really getting to know ourselves. But if you can stay curious and playful, then you can really learn about yourself, but also learn about what's going to work for you. One of the phrases that I use regularly in my work and in my keynotes is, we need to make sure we find out what works for you, not try and think that there's one golden rule that works for everybody. And so how do we know the favorite type of cuisine that we enjoy? Well, because we've tried other things, we've tasted them, we've experienced them, some of the flavors, some of the textures. I like that, I don't like that. But you only get that by being playful and curious. If we only ever do one thing or one style or one approach, you'll never know if there are other more effective styles and approaches that you can follow. So again, I think it can be quite easy for people to fall into the trap of, I've got a problem, okay, I'm starting to understand myself a little bit better, now I must just find one golden answer. I don't necessarily know if there are just one way to do everything. And I think sometimes we just need to stay more playful and curious and try some different things, experiment. Worst case scenario, it doesn't work today. We don't have to do it again tomorrow. But best case outcome is that might be a really effective tool or strategy or way of being that allows you then to get even more out of your life, your health and your happiness.
Worst case scenario, Sam doesn't get his pasta today.
Yeah.
Well, dry pasta. But I'm trying, you see, I'm trying.
I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. I think we could continue on that topic because
passionate.
it's actually a beautiful topic. And I think one day when I'm really old and, maybe I'm about to die and I'm like, you know what, I still don't fully know myself. But what I know is, and it's
But if you know yourself more today than you did yesterday,
Yeah.
I think you're winning.
Yeah.
I think that's a win. And I think that's important that we take the wins where we can.
So after you leave today, I will know more of myself, I'm sure,
Great.
because I'm already noticing some elements that I'm in my thinking as you talk. So
Good.
I really appreciate sharing that. So the second message, because I'm still not cooking, do you notice how prepared I am?
Wow.
So there's little distraction, but I will start cooking very shortly.
Okay.
But I want you to get the fresh pasta towards the end. And
Nice.
I've drained every information out of you first. So the second message is, I can't really wait to hear about this one, is 3 principles of performance.
Yeah.
Preparation, execution, reflection.
Yeah. Thank you. Really, this sort of set of core principles or key principles comes out of a lot of the times when I moved into corporate business settings, them saying to me, okay, so you've done your studies, you've been working with elite performers in a variety of different sports now for 5 years back then. What are the core principles? What are they doing that we can learn from? How do the elite athletes get the best out of themselves, and how can we translate that into business? And so that's really probably where my keynote journey started, was just to stand on stages in front of large audiences of corporate businesses and just tell them about some of these core principles. And although it's been around for a few years, and I suppose I've massaged the message and changed it slightly, I still stand by those 3 core principles. The first one being preparation. You must have prepared fantastically because it's so relaxed in here. The energy is great. But preparation really in the space that I'm talking about is really everything that you do before the performance begins. So before the referee blows his whistle at 3:00 on a Saturday, or before the big sales meeting, or the big, all hands meeting where you're presenting to the whole of your company, everything that happens before that event starts is the preparation window. And again, it's really about making sure that in this space, one of the things that I've seen regularly from my elite athletes is that they get the best out of themselves because their preparation is very intentional, not accidental. And what I'm saying in there is, again, it's that idea about being really clear on what works well for you and making sure you're putting in those pillars for your preparation so that when it comes time to show up and perform, you know that you've done everything that you need to. Now, being intentional, again, doesn't look the same for everybody. But again, it takes a little bit of understanding of who you are to make sure that your preparation phase is actually effective for you. And the best example I can give, something I talk about with some of my other clients, is 2 golfers that I work with before one big major event. Okay, and for the purposes of the stories, I won't reveal their names, but I will call them Tim and David. Okay. Mm-hmm. David is one golfer that's very keen and highly pressurized to perform at this golf tournament on the weekend. So 3 days before the competition begins, David's style and approach is to arrive at the course, get on the course as many times as he possibly can. He wants to play as many practice rounds as he can. He wants to stand in the bunkers and feel the sand underneath his feet. He's the sort of character that wants to feel the greens and make sure he understands more about the way the grass is going to go. He's the sort of person that even wanted to know details like where the toilets were on the golf course so he could manage his hydration. Really wants to know all the detail, all the nuances so he can feel as prepared as possible. We compare that with Tim, who was the other client that I was working with at the time. Tim did not want to arrive at the course 3 days before and play the practice rounds. Tim instead chose to stay at home with his family. He wanted to sleep in his own bed. He wanted to be around his children, taking them to school and picking them up from school. He didn't go anywhere fancy or anywhere different to train. He just went to his local driving range on his local course. And he said to me, Sam, I don't want to be there several days before. I don't want to be overthinking this course, that green, that bunker, this area. I just want to arrive on the day, stand on the first tee, see the shot, and play the shot. Now, both David and Tim had spent time knowing themselves, but what that had led to, it meant that they were both able to develop preparation strategies that worked well for them. And one of the key principles being execution. Often people put the most focus on execution. How did you perform in the moment? Did you smash your sales meeting? Were you brilliant on the pitch? Are you doing it in the moment of high pressure? And often people will rush and overlook the preparation, everything that happened before they arrived at that moment. And really elite performers, and I'm really pleased to be able to say that I now see this in business and sport, the people that I would say are really at the top of their game don't leave anything to accident. They are as prepared as they possibly can be. They've developed strategies that work for them. So when they're preparing for the event, whether they be emotionally preparing or cognitively preparing, they get the best out of themselves. Because then what that means is when the referee blows his whistle, or when that sales meeting starts, or when the cameras go live and you're about to present to your whole company, you know you are as prepared as you can be to be at your best in that moment. But one of the things that really sort of is important to reference with regards to the execution phase is, although it's often the nice part, the fun part, the engaged part, because a lot of people that I work with really enjoy the competitions. They like it when it's actually game time. One of the challenges that comes with game time is pressure. Highly pressured. Often this is where it's the time to shine, but where the pressure really heats up. But again, one of the things that I get my clients to think about in both spaces is the pressure that you're experiencing when the match has started or when the meeting kicks off, is that internal or external pressure? And again, people often look at you quite confused. Well, what do you mean? It's just pressure. I'm just stressed. I'm just overwhelmed at that time. So well, where's the pressure coming from? Is it an internal pressure? So is it inner voices? Is it you saying to yourself, you better be good, you must be good, come on, everybody's looking at you, now's your time to shine, Sam, come on, be the best version you can? Or is it an external pressure? So are you starting to be more concerned with the people that are around you? Are you becoming pressurized because you're aware that your manager or your leader is watching you? Are you becoming more concerned about what they say about you or leading yourself into the next promotion rather than actually just being truly present and being able to perform to your very best in that moment of execution? And people, I think, often get quite confused and lost in that space. They often just get absorbed in the moment rather than actually thinking more about how to execute. Ultimately, what I'm saying is, how do you get the best out of yourself when it's time to shine, when it's time to perform? And people that don't know that run the risk of underperformance, or run the risk of being put into situations or scenarios where they're not going to get the best out of themselves. And so preparation and execution, although they're separate in, I suppose, the way I've described them, are very closely linked, particularly if you're in settings where maybe you're a team player. So business or sport, this applies. If, for example, you're somebody who likes to prepare with silence, you like to know the details, you like to be very clear of the game plan or the strategy, but you're involved in maybe a team dynamic of other people that don't want the detail. They're much more emotional performers, a little bit maybe more confident, like, just get us in there, we'll shine, we'll be fine. But you actually prefer to be more thought-led, more prepared, more knowing of the detail. There can sometimes be a clash. And so what can happen is if you're a part of a team where maybe the majority are doing a different style, you don't perform as well as you know you could. You don't execute because your preparation was sabotaged or it was affected by those around you. And so I think it's important to recognize that they're separate, but also think about where they blur and where they merge. And then finally, reflection. And I bring reflection in at the end because it's naturally where it sits. But often this is the step that just gets completely overlooked. People are honest and willing to look at preparation. People are really keen to think about executing and executing to the best of their potential. But often reflection is that, it's a nice thing to do, Sam, but we don't see it as essential. But the reality is the elites that I work with do this consistently. It's like a muscle that they've developed in the gym. They are desperate when they reach the end of a performance to drain out the learnings and understand all of the areas where it went really, really well and understand all of the areas where it could be improved for next time. So although this can be a really harsh thing to do, or can feel like quite a hard thing to do, particularly if maybe there was an unsuccessful execution or a failure in the execution, what can happen at that point? I'm sure that's not going to be a failure
I'm
at
just
all.
looking at
Dana.
my pasta.
I'm
There's
sure
some
it's
reflections
not.
might come in.
We can reflect after, definitely. But often people just skirt past it, just very quickly. The pressures of life, the pressures of business. It's a dynamic time for business at the moment. It's not unusual for people to execute, get the project completed, hit the deadlines, get their sales number, hit their KPIs, and then move on, rather than actually pausing, reflecting, analyzing, and then taking the goodness into their next preparation phase. And so I present it as P, E, and R. I present them separately, and I try to combine them as best I can. But actually, for me, they're an active circle. To be an elite performer, I think you need all three, and I think you need to use all three, or the insights you gain in all three, to be able to inform you to be as best as you possibly can the next time you go to preparation, execution, and reflection.
And I guess the reflection kind of ties into the first one, is where you're writing down, and it's bringing that awareness and knowing yourself.
Yeah.
Why were you feeling stressed?
Yeah.
Why did this not go well?
Yeah.
And was it external or internal?
Yeah, exactly.
So you know what? I just realized something. I don't do a reflection on each episode.
There you go.
I do as I edit them afterwards. When I look at them, I edit the sentence, and I'm like, oh, okay, I should do this, or I should not do this. And it's constantly should do and not do. Loads of things like that. And I feel like today I want to go after episode, sit down and reflect, because I did the preparation, which was frantic. You didn't even see like there's loads of things going on here, but it's all calm now because I did that preparation.
Absolutely.
And the execution is yet to be determined.
Yeah.
But then the reflection, I think, will come, and it will be really useful to. And I'm just sitting here and thinking, well, what so far in the nearly 38 minutes, what would I change? And it's quite sometimes hard. We're like, well, I did what I could.
Yeah.
But I know there are always things that you can improve, or you can make an action.
Yeah.
Review the video and check the first 15 minutes, what you could have done better, or could you have thought about something else? And
also celebrate too. So sometimes people think reflection is me telling people to be really harsh on themselves or really very critical. Mm-hmm. But actually, sometimes it's more analytical than critical. It's just a case of saying, let's celebrate the first 15 minutes. What went really, really well? And therefore, if I was having the opportunity to redo this situation, I would do the same things again. Let's do it. And there's the opportunity to think, oh yeah, you know what, let me just squeeze out. I imagine it's almost like an orange or a piece of fruit with my clients, and say, if that was your performance, and that was your preparation, if we get them together, let's squeeze out and drain the learnings from them. What would the juices be? What would we be able to taste, smell, learn from those two experiences? And then when we've reflected, do we therefore want to go back and change our preparation style? Do you want to change your approaches? Do you want to do something differently when it comes to execution? For example, I recently been working with a corporate client who presents a lot, and they've recently been becoming aware that their performances, their executions haven't been strong. They've noticed that they've steered away from being heavily reliant on their notes to try and be a little bit more of a relaxed presenter and more of a bullet point presenter with less content. And they've done some honest reflection. That doesn't get the best out of themselves. So whilst they recognize it's still an area of development and there's still growth there, they're actually reverting back to some of their old behaviors while shining them up and adapting them to still mean that they can evolve and grow and become better, but not becoming stuck in underperformance. And that's what I think people often start to do, is they fear reflection because they know they've got to look at themselves being maybe an underperformer or not being as successful as they would like to be. So rather than going into that with honesty, they just prefer to move on past it. And therefore we start to see cycles of mistakes happening, repetition of underperformance, rather than pause, let's learn, let's celebrate, and then let's move forward together.
That makes absolute sense, because to be honest, preparation, execution, you would think it's a kind of logical steps that you will do towards something, as in, for example, today. But the reflection is an additional, almost like element that ties the first two up. Yeah. And we usually slip away from it, as you say. And it's a simple thing to do because you don't have anyone. You don't need Sam to do this. No. You can do this by yourself.
Everything is so simple, and everything I do with my clients, everything I'm sharing with you and the audience today, is that they can do it without me. It's not about selling my services or an online course or here's a book. It's you can do these things. Things like preparation. People will know what they do to prepare for a big meeting, presentation, a football match, wherever they are and they need to perform. People will know what they do, but not many people will know why they do it. That's all I'm asking them to think about. It's not just what, but why. And then if they're brave enough, does that serve you? Does that get you to the level that you want to be at? If you're happy, don't change anything. Just stay there. Stay with your whats and your whys. But if you think you could maybe get a little bit more out of your potential, maybe you could perform it a little bit better, you could maybe arrive at your execution a little bit more prepared, well, let's be brave and honest. What could that be? What might that look like? And these aren't groundbreaking questions. It's just framing them in the way and holding the respectful energy.
And I think you mentioned the brave word quite a few times since we start talking about this. And I think the bravery lies in finding out about yourself and reflecting. And the bravery is only there when you're actually truly honest with yourself. And that bravery and honesty will bring out the actual results.
Yeah.
And I think when people say, well, or even sometimes I would say, oh yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm brave and honest with myself. But I think it's the uncomfortable feeling that you will get when you are being brave and honest is the kind of feeling that you should lean towards. I can name in my words, there is no discomfort or uncomfortable, however you frame this.
Yeah.
But I think it's the feeling inside when you recognize, oh, I messed up and I know why. And it's that admission to yourself. Yeah. It will lead you to really much better places wherever you are, right?
Yeah. And it's interesting that you picked up on bravery, because I think when I first started in this space, I know it's in sport 10 years ago, it was seen as a weakness to work with people like me. You know, oh, you need the help of him. He's like the head guy, the emotions guy. He's just going to ask you how you feel about that. Yeah, it was like a weakness. But I'm really pleased to be able to say it's my experience now that in both sport and business, people like me are being celebrated and we're being brought into different environments and different teams, and people want to work with us. But I don't think that's the easy option. I think that's the hardest option. It is, yeah. So what I believe used to be perceived as weakness to work with somebody like me, I think you're now brave, because I'm going to ask you some questions that are going to make you feel a bit uncomfortable. And if I do my job, they're going to make you very uncomfortable. But that needs to happen for you to understand you, to then find the solutions that will work for you to ultimately lead to your performance. And I think there are still people that fall into that space of, oh, but I won't, or I'm not ready, and that's okay to not be ready. But I think people try to avoid this work because they know it's going to be tricky. It's going to be tough. But in my experience, the results, the outcomes, the benefits outweigh that toughness and that harshness that it can be sometimes to really look at yourself.
I completely agree. I guess being brave to know that you need someone else's help to identify certain issues within you is really brave. And I guess, there are loads of articles and books written about men showing very little emotion, right? Yeah. Towards so many things. And it's so brave for men starting to slowly identify, because I know as I talk to more and more people, they identify their emotions, they identify when they're sad and when they need to cry, and they find partners who support them and allow them to be expressive. And I think that emotion element will almost like bring more equality in a sense, because as women, we are very emotional, right? Yeah. And men usually go on the different spectrum. So I think it's almost like balancing it out, female and male in this world, and identifying that when you need help, you can go for it, and you're actually being extremely brave and inspirational at the same time.
And there's a variety of support now. So it can be very cognitive, it can be very emotional. I think people still get stuck and a bit lost and confused about what's out there. Over the 10 years that I've been out in practice, so let alone the sort of, I suppose, 20 years of my learning journey, it's changing and evolving all of the time. So there may be men, women, there may be audience members just thinking, you know what, I'm more of a thinker. I'm more reliant on my cognitive processes. I like to understand more about the way that my brain thinks. Well, you can do exercises. You can find strategies that are more cognitively focused. But similarly, there may be people thinking, you know what, I'm more emotional. I'm more of an emotional being. I prepare emotionally. I execute emotionally. I just feel things more. Well, that's great too. Know that about yourself and then find the support that's available. I think people sometimes hold themselves back in digging into these areas and really reflecting because they think they're going to be taken really out of their comfort zone and maybe be emotional when they're cognitive. That doesn't have to be the case. You just need to find the right support that's going to work for you.
Thank you. I really appreciate you sharing these experiences. And there are lots. And I would love to listen to more stories of the different clients, because it's always fascinating about identifying people and how all different, we all differ, and how different processes and ways work for all of us, and just finding that one right way.
Yeah.
So Sam, I'm
Yeah.
about to cook. Are you hungry?
Amazing. I'm excited. Yeah, really excited.
So before I read your third message, I'm
Okay.
just going to quickly tell you what I do. Have you ever made this
I
type of
haven't.
pasta? No. Good. So you like crab?
I do.
Thank
Yeah,
God.
I do.
You did say you like fish, so I thought,
I
okay,
do.
good. So what I'll do now, it's a really quick process. Actually, it's really good for dinner parties. You don't have to roll your own pasta as well, but this makes it really easy. So I put a bit of garlic in the pan. And then we're going to put some chili. And I earlier just put some olive oil. Just going to reduce a little bit the heat. And it's just slightly cooking so it all starts getting softer. And smells delicious.
Smells great.
And then as this cooking, I'll read the message. And then whilst you're talking about it, you will see me pouring this. And this is just a bit of white wine.
Okay.
It's actually Chablis.
Nice.
Because I don't have a cooking wine. I just realized I never have cooking wine. I should have, but I have lots of delicious wine. So this is just 5 tablespoons of white wine that will go in there. And afterwards, you will see me putting a bit of brown crab meat. And that will allow a bit of kind of butteriness in the sauce and kind of creaminess. It will create that because there's nothing else creamy or anything going on in there. And then that's it. And then there'll be white crab meat. I mean, it's simple as this. And you know what? Actually, one of the messages, simplicity is the key. I always talk about it. It's the most simple, then you can really craft it. So I did go out with the pasta, you know, and it wasn't simple for me because I never make pasta. I must say, I never, because it's just so simple and easy to drop in dry pasta. So in a sense, you don't really have to do it, but I wanted to make it a bit special, and hopefully it will turn out to be
It looks great.
special for my guests.
I'm optimistic. I'm really hopeful. Really optimistic.
Okay, Sam, so I'll just pop this in. A bit of noise from the wine. And I'm just reducing, so it slightly evaporates and just blends with olive oil. Not much than that. And I'll read the first message and then I proceed with my brown crab meat.
Great.
Okay. So the third message is, leaders or individuals can lead through change or time of change. They need to take a people first approach.
Thank you. Yeah, it's another thing that I suppose has been more of an involvement in my work and in my experiences in my practice. But what I've started to really notice, particularly I suppose since the pandemic, is people's reactions and responses to times of change. And I know that obviously we all individually went through that, but what I'm really starting to notice is some of the leadership styles and the leadership approaches to change. And I suppose my key message here, and one of the things that I'm now taking out in some of the work that I'm delivering and some of the keynotes that I'm being asked to deliver too, is to really challenge some of the leadership thinking around how best to approach times of change. So things like dealing with the ambiguity and dealing at times with uncertainty. Some of the organizations and clients that I'm working with are recognizing that they're taking their people on a time of transformation and they're encouraging their people to really buy into the process and buy into this experience, but they aren't able to give their people certainty about the destination. So they're inviting their people to go on this journey, but they can't give them certainty. And therefore, what they're recognizing is that there are resistances, there are challenges, there are people digging their heels in, people that are really, so I suppose, responding in quite a variety of ways. And at times it still amazes me that the leaders that I work with and share conversations with are surprised that that's the case. Because what I think is still happening today, and I'm always happy to have these discussions with leaders and different organizations, is I think leaders are still very much guided by what makes business sense. So it makes strategic, logical, quite rational sense for us to, for example, merge these two areas of the businesses together. And that makes sense because then we can start to pool resources. You know what, our capability and capacity will therefore increase and we can streamline some of our processes. And there may be the most fantastic business cases and justifications as to why that needs to happen, but they don't think about the people that are going to be involved in the change. They don't think about the people that are in those business units or area of the businesses or those offices that are suddenly going to be told that what they've known as familiarity and security and safety of their roles and their expectations is suddenly going to change. And rather than sitting by maybe their 2 colleagues or 3 colleagues that they've sat next to for the last 10 or 15 years, they're now going to be sat with new people. And they might not like those people, or they might be really skeptical about those people, or they may be really unsure if this is actually going to be a positive thing for their career, or if now suddenly they're going to be going into competition with these new people that are now new team members or new members of their office. And so one of the things that I'm always trying to get leaders to think about is when they're shaping, or I suppose refocusing the direction of their businesses, whether that be through mergers, whether that be through reorganizations, whether it be spinning areas of the business off, selling it, or just taking the business in a new direction, can they take their people with them? And if they are taking their people with them, how are they taking their people with them? And one of the things I think that often gets overlooked is actually involving people in the decisions. That isn't me saying I think you should let your people make the decisions, but I'm encouraging leaders that I'm working with to involve their people in the decisions. Because if there is a business need for there to be change and transformation, and if the outcome of, if there isn't change, the business is going to close and fold, the employees are going to want there to be change because they're going to want that security. They're going to want the business to survive. But what could be really, really valuable that I think leaders sometimes overlook is the insights that their people have. So there may be a solution or there may be an option that their people are aware of, but they're not involved in the discussion, or they're not willing to go down maybe a couple of levels down in the business or in the building, for example, and just say, what are your thoughts on this? What would you do? We're facing this challenge. We need to find a solution. What would you do? What would be your contribution? How do you see this? And so I think involving them in the decision-making process is vital. And then I also think it's vital in communicating and thinking about how you effectively then get them on the transformation journey. Sometimes people think, sometimes in my experience, leaders think that people are easy to encourage, easy to support, and easy to, I suppose, follow the new direction. And I think some people are. I think some people really like newness, freshness, change. They like being adaptable. They like being given opportunities. But there are still a lot of people that when they face times of change or transformation, feel it as a threat, and it triggers a really deep emotional experience. And that's when I often see high levels of conflict, resistance, and stuckness to the change that's going forward. And that impacts then on the business's ability to perform and function in this time of transition, and also negatively affects on morale, culture, and team dynamics. So it's a real big passion of mine at the moment, thinking about where I suppose I am in my practice and what it is that I'm out there talking about.
I think it's also about the company and wanting to change. And I think the idea of people first approaches, it's somewhere there. Yeah. And I know, and I worked in banking, and I know people really, the management especially, wanted to involve people. And I think because it all stems from the past where the top makes a decision and tells you what to do, it's slowly changing. I think people, perhaps like you, going into companies and introducing new approaches, new ways of working, and showing the results that, you know what, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And usually every time you're more concerned with people, their emotions, their feelings about the situation or where they are at the workplace, and identifying those, it usually fixes everything else. And I think it's the people who make everything, right? So why are we focusing on the how they do it or the problems? It's the people. So I completely see that as working for many corporations, and it's a brave thing to do.
Yeah.
And it's changing the mentality, changing the whole language about how people do business.
Yeah.
And
I think it's also changing the mentality about how leaderships or leaders make these decisions about times of change. Because what I think has traditionally been one of the mindsets is we just keep that to us. We keep it at this level. We don't tell anybody what's going on. We'll be the ones with the responsibility. We'll make the decision and then we'll reveal it to people. And what I think sometimes happens is people I get announced that these changes happening, and they've had no understanding or expectation that change was on the horizon. And again, I can see why that can be valuable in some instances, but I can also see why sometimes people become really overwhelmed by a sudden change, or what feels like a sudden change within their businesses, within their lifestyles, because for many people, work is a really important part of their day and part of their lives. And to now suddenly be told it's got to change can be a real jolt and a real shock to many people. So I think it's about finding a balance. And that's why, again, there's no one golden rule for this. And it's about identifying and being very respectful of each individual business and the people that work within it. But I think the people that have had the most success, or the businesses that have had most success, have been the people first approach companies. The people are respected to contribute and be involved in the decisions. Of course, they're not the ones who make the final decision, but they are able to contribute and feel like their voice is being heard. Because then it's my understanding and my experience of people that if they feel like they've been heard, even if the decision is taken to do something different and maybe they don't actually fully agree with it, there'll be a level of respect towards the decision makers because they feel like, actually, you know what, they allowed me to be part of this process rather than this is being done to me. Actually, I feel like I've been more of a part of this and been more involved with this.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing this, Sam. We completely ran out of time. I don't know where the time flew, but I could see and sense your passion here.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love what you do and keep on doing. And especially the third message, I think so many organizations would benefit from looking at it that way, the people first approach. And I know there are my quite a few friends and people that I work with identify within their companies that it's happening and it's beautiful. And it's almost uniting people at the same time. So I've been waiting to cook.
Sorry.
To cook. No.
I've been talking too much. I apologize.
No. I've been waiting to find last minute to cook because this basically probably don't even need much cooking. So I reduced it to 2 literally on my hob, and I'm just going to pop it in, and your pasta will be ready in a moment. So fingers crossed.
Keep everything crossed. It looks great.
This is almost looking like loads of noodles, but because of spaghetti, I try to do it really thinly. I actually experimented this already. So I did some preparation and I cooked for my family a meal and I made it a bit thicker and I ate it. And I was like, would I like this to be given to me? I was like, no, I would like thinner noodles. So I've not tried thinner noodles.
So you did some reflection there. You know, you executed, you reflected, and then you prepared differently. Nice.
But then I did not prepare. So I did not try these noodles. Okay. Yes, Sam. So this is all going to be very new.
I'm very happy to be part of this. Very happy.
You know what? I take a lot of risks many times. And then some of them pay off. Some of them, should have prepared. So this will come on reflection much later on if I needed to prepare. But I think all so far so good. And in terms of food, Sam, do you like cooking? Yourself?
I really enjoy cooking. The only challenge I have is that I enjoy cooking when I've got unlimited time. So if I'm on a time scale or if there's a deadline, I find that quite tricky. But if I'm left to my own devices, I'm left in the kitchen by myself, get some nice music on, I really enjoy the process of cooking. And I'm happy to cook without a list of ingredients in a recipe. I'm also happy to follow them. So yeah, I just really enjoy the experience.
Oh, that's nice. You know, so... And your wife as well likes cooking, or is it just yourself preparing meals regularly?
She does, and she's a great cook. I think I probably enjoy the 4 or 5 hours in the kitchen, doing loads of different things. Whereas I think she prefers to be in and out and a little bit more efficient. I think she'd probably say her levels are up higher there. But no, I just really enjoy the whole experience of it. Taking what are just raw ingredients and then combining them into something delicious.
So it sounds like me because I spend 20-30 minutes every day making meals. There's no time for me to do 5 hours something. But you probably the cook that has guests over and you just leisurely make a Sunday roast in 3-4 hours. I'll be like, no, I'm really fast cook. And I think that just comes from me needing to make a meal for the family quickly. It's evening and I used to come back from work and I never wanted to have any takeaways. I was really bad at having takeaways. Now I have more takeaways, but before I just didn't like any. So I was so stubborn. I was like, you know what, I'm just going to make this meal and really put myself through so much hard work. But then it taught me to cook really fast. So, like a 30 minutes meals. But this is looking good.
It looks
I'm
great.
Happy. Nothing is sticking.
I know the audience can't smell it, but it smells great.
Right. So I'm going to pop in this, slightly put the heat back on so that it slightly warms up the crab. So Sam, we finished your messages.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to share as almost like a extra golden bonus message? Great. I know I put you on the spot. I did not.
No, that's okay. I think my sort of golden spot to finish would just be through all the years of study, through all the years of work, and in all the different spaces of clients that I get to work with. It's just where you can just be kind to yourself and stay curious about yourself. So don't become too critical. Be kind, and don't try and find, I suppose, the analytical way to really break yourself down. Just stay curious, stay reflective, stay open to being who you are, but also to changing and there being changes in how you think, feel, and behave. So yeah, those would be my 2 golden messages. Be kind and be curious.
I absolutely agree with that because the curiosity, as we said already mentioned, is such an important element because, be curious we are curious about so many things in our life, but why don't we become curious about ourselves? You know, I'm curious what my neighbor is doing.
Yeah.
Why are we so curious about what other people are doing? You know, and we're watching their lives, curiosity about other people's lives.
Yeah.
Becoming curious about yourself is that journey that would put you on to so many different successes in your life.
Agreed.
And I think I actually do a lot of the saying curiosity killed the cat.
Yeah.
You know, it's actually quite wrong now when you're looking at it. No, keep it curious. You're not going to get killed.
No,
you know,
stay curious. Yeah,
Stay curious.
Stay fun. Stay alert, and just stay open to what you might find out about yourself as well.
So hopefully the guests and the audience, whoever been watching us, enjoyed our conversation, because I truly enjoyed, you know, talking about knowing thyself and the 3 performance elements, and then talking about the first people first approaches. I think they all really nicely tie up within yourself and the surroundings that you may find yourself in with different careers. Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you
and
for having me as a guest.
My job is to share with you. It's almost a little bit, you know what, I like the thinness of them.
Yeah.
I like it because I made them thicker and I prefer them thin. So let's see. I mean, Sam will give me an honest opinion.
Yeah. It smells great, so if it tastes as good as it smells, we are winning.
Thank you, Sam. So there you go. I'm just going to put a little bit more parsley, a little drizzle of olive oil.
Wow.
All the details of my pasta will be on the website, details of Sam as well, and his website will be on my website. Oh, ignore that little bit there.
Don't worry.
Thank you so much, Sam. I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for being here. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.